All right, we'll get started. So we're delighted to be here together, and I'm going to have a few opening comments and have the judges introduce themselves and have any questions from the participants before we get started, and we'll get started. So first and foremost, I want to start out with, this is part of the competition, and that you are taking on a fictional business identity and are assigned a fictional business identity and to us as judges. So we need to know who we are, what role we're playing, and so hopefully in your opening comments you will talk to that. Please be sure that everyone knows who you are, and before you begin. You'll have 25 minutes, and Megan will be counting the clock for us, and she'll give us our cues and signals as to when it's time to wrap up. But in that 25 minutes, please describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem you have decided to discuss with us, and the recommended solutions that pass muster on all three dimensions. And again, those dimensions are legal, financial, business, ethical dimensions of the problem that's before us. And during this time, you will be uninterrupted. So we'll have our Q&A after your presentation. We'll ask a few questions of you for 10 to 15 minutes. And during the Q&A, we want you to stay in character. We'll stay in character, and we'd like for you to stay in character as you present responses to those questions. And then after that, we'll have some time to provide some feedback, some coaching along the way. So I'm going to go over to each of our judges for introduction, and then we'll come back and ask if you have any questions before we get started. So Megan.
Great, thanks, Joe. So I'm Megan Weiss, and I'm an ethics director at Raytheon Technologies, which is an aerospace and defense company. Newly merged, we were Raytheon and United Technologies, and we just went through the merger at the beginning of April. So I work out of our El Segundo facility, which is very close to the LMU campus. And I'm just thrilled to be here today and looking forward to this discussion. So good luck, and this will be fun. So over to Mark, if you want to introduce yourself.
You're muted, Mark.
Yeah.
There's so many participants. Hello. Let's see, I'm advisor for the Santa Barbara City, the team. Okay, I better start the video again. We're happy to be back. We've participated in the competition a number of years all over the country, and it's good to be back in Southern California for the second year in a row. And yeah, we always love the competition.
Great. All right, Mark Emmer, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, sorry about that. So Mark Emmer, I'm an alumni of 1984. In 2002, I founded a management consulting practice. I'm based up in Valencia, and we specialize exclusively in strategic planning, so we help companies grow. And I'm looking forward to being a judge today.
Okay. And Colin? Is Colin with us? Okay, so it looks like we're good to go then. So my name is Joe Wilkins. Yeah.
Joe, did you want to have Christopher introduce himself?
Yeah, Chris. I'm sorry, Chris. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Christopher Walton, LMU MBA 1990, and an attorney.
Okay. And my name is Joe Wilkins again. I am a consultant with TRG Healthcare. We're based in Philadelphia. I live in Southern California, travel the nation and consult with a number of healthcare systems. And so with that, we will turn it over to the Minerva team. If you have any questions before we get started, we'll entertain them. But for now, we'll have you introduce yourself to us and get started, and we'll start the clock at that time.
All right. I'm just going to take control of the screen real quick. All right, and I'm getting the all clear from my team. It looks like we're ready to begin. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Axel Jensen. I'm legal counsel for Minerva Consulting. It's an honor to be speaking in front of the Facebook Board of Directors today. I have the pleasure of introducing with me today Ms. Ada Lukic, our financial consultant.
Good afternoon, board members.
Ms. Zhangchong Chen, a senior member of our ethical council.
Good afternoon.
As well as Ms. Maddie Legan, another esteemed senior member of our ethical council.
Good afternoon, board.
Now, before we begin, I think Ms. Lukic actually has a couple videos for you guys to watch.
Great. So imagine you wake up in the morning and see your friend has posted links to the following 2 videos on their Facebook.
I wish I could keep telling you that our mission in life is connecting people, but it isn't. We just want to predict your future behaviors. Spectre showed me how to manipulate you into sharing intimate data about yourself and all those you love for free. The more you express yourself, the more we own you.
And after you watched that video, you clicked on the next video starring Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
Along with on the floor, custody of the border. Everyone, they started sending signals. The U.S., Mexico, Canada. That's not the accurate. Some people call it NAFTA. Some call it NAFTA 2.0. We're working together to pass that. The three things. We're very busy people.
So the weird thing is, both of the videos we just watched were manipulated content, but Facebook would only ban one of them. The first video we watched was a deepfake video, or content that was digitally manipulated with the help of AI technology. The second video would be categorized as a shallow fake video, which is still digitally manipulated, but by means of human creation with use of more basic technologies, such as Photoshop or iMovie. Next slide, please. Fake news has been a pervasive problem within the modern media for some time now, and we chose to focus our consulting efforts on the video content within Facebook. We chose to focus on video as in the past, it could be considered the golden standard of truth, as no one could realistically alter this content well enough to deceive or mislead with it. But having said this, with continuously advancing technologies emerging, this is no longer the case. With the arrival of deep and shallow fake technologies came a blurred line between truth and altered reality, as now there is potential to impose anyone's person into any situation imaginable. Having said this, I would now like to discuss Facebook's current deepfake policy. Next slide, please. It states, it has been edited or synthesized beyond adjustments for clarity or quality in ways that aren't apparent to the average person and would likely mislead someone into thinking the subject of the video said words they did not actually say. It is the product of artificial intelligence or machine learning that merges, replaces, or superimposes content into a video, making it appear more realistic. This policy does not extend towards content that is parody or satire or video that has been edited solely to omit or change the order of words. Next slide, please. So the first point mentions the policy would not allow for content that is likely to mislead someone into thinking that a subject of the video said words that they did not actually say. But this fails to consider that it is not just what we say that matters, it's also how we say it, in the sense that this policy has no mention of splicing words an individual did say into statements that have very different meanings. Next slide, please. Their second point bans content created by AI that merges or superimposes pictures and videos, but lacks any mention of shallow fakes or human-edited content, such as the Nancy Pelosi video we saw earlier, which are often more popularized and accessible while being equally as harmful. Next slide, please. Furthermore, this policy does not extend towards content that is parody or satire, or video that has been edited solely to omit or change the order of words. However, this fails to realize that a phrase taken out of context can have a million different meanings, and word order is very important. Furthermore, it fails to address the potential positives this technology may have, as there are many educational and artistic purposes this technology may be utilized for. So why does the policy need to change? Well, first, let's take a look at the financial implications of the current policy. As we can see in this chart, there was a decrease in individuals who had currently ever used Facebook from 2017 to 2018 in both of the first 2 age groups. Next slide, please. With Facebook's popularity decreasing in the past few years, especially amongst the younger generations that will one day be Facebook's target audience, we want to help maintain the users that are still active on Facebook while projecting a positive reputation regarding content to potentially entice future users. Moreover, low-quality content will not only lose users, but has a low-quality aesthetic, further turning off users from engaging with Facebook. And we understand that being able to identify and manage this kind of technology proves to be quite the challenge, especially on such a large platform like Facebook. But having said this, we suggest Facebook works with the company DeepTrace, who've created a highly credible deepfake detection technology created with the intention to preserve the integrity of digital media. DeepTrace will be able to help Facebook detect, mitigate, and monitor deepfakes on their platform, as they have a programmable integration of their technologies that Facebook can utilize for their platform. And although it will cost to utilize DeepTrace's services, it will better ensure a higher quality, more user-friendly platform that may appeal to larger audiences than Facebook currently has. With that being said, I will now let Mr. Jensen discuss the legal aspects of our presentation.
Thank you. Just as Ms. Lukic wants to continue legitimizing your image to consumers, I want to really focus on keeping your astute legal policy clean and updated in efforts that there won't be any radical congressional decisions that we don't anticipate in the future. Obviously, you board members are aware that you're in no way liable for content users post on your website. It's outlined in US Code Section 230, clear as day. But I wouldn't be so confident that the law of the land, especially on the state level, is going to remain the same in the coming years. For example, California and Texas have both already passed legislation which prohibit the spread of deepfake video contingent to an election year. Not to mention, a congresswoman in New York by the name of Yvette Clarke introduced a bill known as the Deepfakes Accountability Act, a sweeping national legislation that would require all videos with advanced technological manipulation to be watermarked as such on all platforms. Now, right now, due to the current status of the world, there might not be a heavy chance of that bill passing within the next few months, but it's going to prove advantageous if we are able to get our policy ahead of anything coming from the national state level. Now, when we talk about Facebook's policy, we're appealing to Facebook's own values, attempting to introduce a new way in which we can protect these values. Us at Minerva Consulting hold your values in high esteem when we were deliberating this policy change. And we catered our new policy to reflect these values of authenticity, privacy, dignity, and safety. With Facebook being the king of social tech, there's definitely a precedent to be set here with your future policy. There's even the possibility that if big companies distribute sophisticated policy early enough before the technology gets out of hand, government entities at the local and even the national levels are likely to adopt such a policy simply because they trust you as the industry experts on how to solve the problem. With all that in mind, I'd like to turn it back over to Ms. Lukic to introduce our new policy.
Thank you. So we propose a two-level policy, where there will be a strict and a moderate level. Strict content will be instantly banned from Facebook, and political ads and content containing any deep or shallow fakes will fall under the strict level. The moderate policy will not be instantly banned, but instead reviewed by Facebook. Deep or shallow fake content that has a disclaimer appear prior to the content being viewed that informs the viewer that the content they are seeing is digitally manipulated or incorrect in some way will fall under the moderate level. And although moderate level content may remain on Facebook, it will appear lower on the Facebook timeline. Next slide, please. The disclaimer must include a link or resource to the original content that was viewed in the Facebook post, as to provide users with an option to have more thorough information regarding the content they have just viewed. And similarly, deep and shallow fake content that has remained on Facebook for over 24 hours and lacks a specific disclaimer may be subject to more extensive levels of review by Facebook as to decide whether or not the content should be kept up. Another component of our policy is deep strike, which states if a user has their deep or shallow fake content removed 3 times for violating Facebook's policy, their account may be subject to review and potential suspension. And our reasoning behind this is if someone has a history of continuously posting misleading content while simultaneously disregarding Facebook's policies regarding this technology, they should not be using Facebook. Next slide, please. But this policy does not extend towards content that is parody, satire, or intended for artistic or educational purposes. Having said this, I will now let Ms. Lagan discuss the ethical aspects of our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Lukic. We want to help make Facebook meet their goals of connecting individuals and empowering people to communicate. The misinformation problem on Facebook is completely ubiquitous, and deepfake technology has the potential to exacerbate it. Responsibly managing manipulated media is a way Facebook can show its users its commitment to the sustainability of information and the sustainability of its communities. What I mean by sustainable information is that behavior, beliefs, supposed facts based on false information are unsustainable. Unsustainability and falsehood go hand in hand. Astronomers used to believe that the Earth was the center of the universe, and they made entire false astronomical models based on that information. And those false models weren't sustainable and eventually had to be rejected when confronted with the actual nature of the universe. Similarly, false political information, false medical information, etc., leads to equally unsustainable predictions and actions. How can we expect people to make free, informed choices when they are bombarded with misleading or outright false content? Facebook is a unique platform that has the potential to equalize public access to information, and it would benefit you and your users to take advantage of that potential. Managing manipulated media can also help Facebook sustain its sense of community. Users want to be able to trust that the content that they're seeing wasn't posted with the intention to mislead. They want to be able to trust that the important information that they received is based on the most relevant and best available facts, and not based on what causes the most outrage or gets the most clicks. Quality, honest, and engaging content is the basis of a sustainable community. In the introduction to Facebook's community standards, authenticity is cited as one of its core values. In your own words, authenticity creates a better environment for sharing, and we completely agree. However, we do recognize there are some extremely important benefits to deepfake technology that shouldn't be restricted in the same way. The application of Facebook's deepfake policy as it is, with no regards to intention, can lead to some problematic results. Not all content that is misleading is inherently unethical. Suppose a user posts a deepfake video of Lincoln giving the Gettysburg Address. Its intention is obviously not satirical, so it's not exempt in that regard. Technically, it's misleading, and it is made using machine learning. Yet there's no clear ethical issue with the user posting it. And in fact, banning it may do more of a disservice to its potential educational value than leaving it untouched. If you compare that to a human-edited shallow fake video, like the Nancy Pelosi one, which is obviously trying to use false information to affect people's political choices, the ethical difference is clear. This is why our revised policy includes exemptions for art and education, as well as satire. Next slide, please. We recognize that balancing both a safe and respectful environment and protecting free speech isn't easy and has no one-size-fits-all solution. But as far as manipulated content goes, there are other platforms with different goals and more appropriate audiences that a user can upload their manipulated content to. Part of Facebook's Hard Questions series addresses free speech. It says that an important exemption to free speech is content that aims to profit by tricking people. Deep and shallow fakes have the potential to undermine genuine communication and connection by doing just that. Secondly, our policy does uphold Facebook's commitment to voice by having a more comprehensive and defensible reason for removing content rather than it just being AI manipulated, all while protecting the right of artists and educators to be heard. Everyone on Facebook, including Facebook, is accountable for its content. Facebook is the largest social media platform, having 2.45 billion monthly users, so it's a global player in the distribution of information. And while Facebook isn't directly responsible for what its users post, Facebook is responsible for how it manages, organizes, and presents content in the newsfeed. The general public already has expectations that Facebook will take initiative to addressing their content problems. Facebook's reputation as an accessible, comprehensive, and family-friendly platform is also extremely important to their sustainability as a reliable business. And now I want to let Ms. Chen elaborate.
Thank you. Labeling every deepfake content seems extreme and overdramatic. It would be absurd to label every photos and videos edited with Photoshop or filters. But unlike shallow fake technologies, which are accessible to almost every internet user, deepfake, as artificial intelligence in general, is limited to relatively fewer people. While the majority of users are used to seeing filtered photos and videos on social media, they do not expect to see AI-generated content putting words into people's mouths and can easily be misled by them. The upgraded policies is one way Facebook gets a head start before the problem of deepfake fully reveals. But it is worth noting that cutting-edge technologies such as artificial intelligence will one day be available to the general public, and by that time, Facebook will have to amend its policies to keep up with it. It's unrealistic to expect one set of policies to keep up with the rapid development of technology. Next slide, please. With that in mind, Facebook should also be prepared for ambiguous content, the gray area where videos remain in question. The only and the most effective way to detect AI-generated videos is to utilize artificial intelligence technology, especially for contents that remain authentic to naked eyes. The way an AI learns how to distinguish fake from authentic is similar to the way a child learns how to identify objects. To tell the difference between cats and dogs, the child needs to see a certain amount of such animals to know how their size, color, shape, temperament, and smell are varying. An AI also needs a certain amount of data sets or benchmark to learn how to distinguish man-made video from artificial intelligence generated content. However, as we only start to see our AI technology thrive, we don't have enough experience in this new territory. There is not a great enough data set or benchmark to train AI to efficiently detect deepfakes. Well, Facebook is collaborating with companies and academic institutions to make high-quality data sets available to the community. It is reasonable to anticipate deepfake technology adapts as our detecting method improve. With all the measures Facebook has taken and will be taking, there will be certain contents remain undetermined. And it is time to face the truth. We are in the era of misinformation. Next slide, please. Granted, we already have a taste of misinformation with the popularization of social media, but we are only at the beginning level. It is possible that in the near future, we will no longer be able to use videos as the gold standard of truth as we are right now. We'll have to keep in mind that just because someone is caught on video saying or doing certain things doesn't mean they have actually done so in real life. To some extent, we need to rebuild our belief system. Such an adaptation is not an easy step, but the sooner we accept the world is different, the better we can adjust to it. Next slide, please. Misinformation is not a problem just for Facebook. It is a barrier for civilization as a whole. But Facebook does have a unique advantage to fight this battle. With its 2.45 billion users, Facebook is the perfect platform preparing the world to get ready for the era of misinformation. It can reach out and raise awareness among its users, and these users in turn can inform their friends and families. Next slide, please. We don't want to see the majority remain oblivious of the harm of deepfake, while certain people equipped with this technology take advantage of the rest of the world. The first step is to get people on the same page. Even with improved policies, the fact that human beings are prone to inflammatory speeches remains the same. And there is a limitation on what Facebook can do to the contents posted by users without infringing the freedom of speech. Acknowledging this limitation doesn't mean backing down from the challenge. On the contrary, Facebook can seize this opportunity and redefine social media in this uncertain time. Next slide, please. Artificial intelligence is the future. And as we demonstrated earlier, even deepfake can be used as a means to educate and entertain people. Informing people about the dark side of AI is not contradictory to embracing the future. With a set of up-to-date policies and a preparation for the unknown, Facebook is ready to take the leading role as social media platform and technology company when the future is here. And that will be our presentation for today. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. I thank you so much. I wanted to just a few comments, and then we'll go around just to the questions. I appreciate the gravity of this topic and subject. It is quite a challenging dilemma that we all have in front of us. I particularly, appreciated the opening of the video of the two different presentations in terms of videos, in terms of the which one is real, which one isn't real. They're both not real, but yet one gets to stay, the other one doesn't. So what a way to open that up. So I'm going to go around and ask for questions and Q&A from the judges, and I'll start with Chris if you want to start with just some dialogue with any questions on the presentation. You're on mute. Still on mute. Let's see. Yeah. Still on mute, Chris.
Okay, I got it. The space bar didn't work for me. Sorry.
Got it now.
One question for Axel, and forgive me for being a lawyer. It's a blessing and a curse. You cited to a federal law, but you cited it incorrectly. Federal laws they're a title, USC, and a section, 18 USC 595. What was the law that you were citing to? What is the actual site?
I could look it up real quick. I cited it as section 230. 230.
And what was the part that comes before the USC? Do you know? Like 18 United States Code, section 230.
Shoot, I don't have that on me. It's 47. It's 47.
Oh, Title 47.
Yeah, Title 47.
Right.
I apologize.
So the way we cite laws like that are 47 USC 230. That was my only question, because I want to look up the law when we're done. I thought everything was just fine.
Okay. All right. So let's go over then to Mark. Any questions, Q&A?
I do have two questions. So first of all, you said that not all misleading content is unethical, and you suggested that some usages could actually contribute to society. So I'm curious, how do you think Facebook or other technology providers, for that matter, should make that distinction, right? Like it makes me feel like we're judge and jury, and we are to decipher what is good and what is evil. What would be some guidelines that you would recommend for us?
I think some guidelines that could be really beneficial are like the actual content of the video, and also partially the intention of the video and the kind of place it's posted. And so if if a video is really clearly labeled, like for my 10th grade AP United States history class, then it's pretty easy to tell that the intention is educational and not to mislead. And that definitely gets us into some really serious gray areas where it's not always easy to decipher a user's intention. And so that's why reviewing content is really important. And just because there are lots of gray areas does not mean that we should do nothing and not make an attempt to keep Facebook safe.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I also think that the technology being as young as it is right now, I know we talked that it's rapidly developing just as everything that we have on our plates at this point in the world is, but the fact that right now the technology is sort of limited in its usage, it's taking more formal and sophisticated programs to really create some sort of very misleading video that is trying to throw off things on like a political stage. So we feel that through the kind of review process going over, we can start filtering, especially the ones that gain lots of traction. We can start actually filtering those out of the common discourse and actually just having a more sustainable information flow on the internet.
Now, my other question, I was a little confused by the two-level policy. What I was unclear about was if that was an either or if those two things are in parallel.
Right. So those things go hand in hand. There will be both strict and moderate with deep fakes that are political content or ads that have deep or shallow fakes in them with political themes are falling under the strict level, which will be instantly banned, as opposed to any other content that involves deep or shallow fakes that has a disclaimer on it.
So in other words, you're going to use technology and automate that separation?
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay. Now I'm clear. Thank you.
Okay. Megan, any Q&A?
Yeah, I guess I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about the implementation and the monitoring of these policies, because I think there's probably general agreement that these policies or the issues that we're trying to address are the right thing. My concern as a member of the board is, you put a policy in place, and then what are the actions that we're going to be taking to actually monitor and implement? And I know you talked some about, the AI and the technology to be able to monitor the content, but it seems like the technology is not quite there. So I just wonder, are we opening ourselves up either from a legal standpoint or other if we're creating a policy that we don't have an effective way to execute?
That is a very good point, and the obviously the tangible implications of any policy are kind of hard to figure out. I know that Ms. Lukic actually brought up the company Deep Trace, which is a tried and true company that works right now for the same reasons that we came to you today, trying to sustain and compartmentalize the flow of information. Their mission statement is to track down these deep faked videos and properly make them just available to the community, that they're aware of those. And we think that through working with them, through the technology that they've actually created, we could have a very, very, very tangible and sophisticated way to put our policy on paper and online almost overnight.
To go off of what Mr. Jensen said, I completely agree. And with Deep Trace, they actually have, so their three principles are to monitor, detect, and to mitigate. And in their monitoring process, they send whoever company they're working with real-time notifications and analytical reports on for risk for individuals or organizations. And in order to detect these technologies on Facebook, they leverage the latest advances in deep learning and video forensics, such as face morphing and GAN-generated images, which is something that contributes to the creation of deepfakes.
Okay, great. Joe, if I may, I have a second question, and then I'll cede the floor. We talked a couple of times about intent, so the intent behind the videos that have been, edited. And I guess I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how we're able to assess the intent in a consistent and defensible way. Before joining this board, I spent a lot of time conducting investigations in some of my prior companies, and I can tell you, trying to figure out someone's intent in their actions is very challenging. And then I'm just kind of curious then how we're going to do that when we're looking at, video content. So I know Maddie talked a little bit about, well, if something's labeled, yeah, then we would know the intent. But I think the vast majority of what we're talking about is not going to be labeled. So I'm interested in hearing a little bit more on that.
You are completely right. Intent is extremely difficult to identify. And because of that, we chose to implement the policy where we have the disclaimer on the content instead of something like intention tags stating what the intention would be. So instead of trying to identify every individual's intention for their content, we instead will just review it, add a disclaimer, and provide further information on that topic to users instead of trying to differentiate everyone else's intention.
Okay, I thought that part of your policy talked about exemptions for content based on intent. So if it is, if it's been generated for, learning or art or, other stuff like that. So I guess I didn't realize that you felt the disclaimer then was addressing that piece.
Part of that point was to say, was to point out the problems with Facebook's original policy, that it does not take into account misleading content that is not necessarily malicious.
Okay, all right, great, thank you, and great job. Thank you, Joe.
All right. So my question has to do with what I think I heard developing two trends that were statements made throughout the presentation. One of the facts that was discussed was around the declining membership of Facebook, and I think there was a connection or illusion or a connection to that caused due to data information that's not accurate. So perhaps if that's one, I want to confirm if that's the connection. The other trend that was discussed had to do with the increased ease of capability of producing deep fake videos specifically in the future by anyone in the public, and how do an organization like Fakebook get ahead of that? I just want to confirm those two trends before I get into the questions around each one of them.
Absolutely. So the graph we saw earlier was from a survey done by Edison in their Infinite Dial 2018 report, which is America's longest running survey of digital media consumers. So that data was accurate.
Okay, so then how do we as a board make the connection then to that we could actually lose revenue, we can lose our membership if we don't truly address this issue, and then how do we make the connection also to the fact that as more and more people can produce and upload fake video, how do we get somewhat control of all of this? How do you make those connections to those trends?
I think when like shallow fake technologies such as Photoshop or filters, which like 10 years ago would be limited to relatively few people, and it's just like deepfake right now. And if more and more people, like the general public, have access to this kind of technology, then I think it will be less a problem or a different problem. Because Facebook as a company right now, its users have a certain anticipation to what kind of contents or videos they're seeing on this platform. So they will not be easily misled by filter videos or Photoshop, because they, like, this generation has already equipped it with that kind of knowledge, but not with deepfake. So right now I wouldn't be too worried about how we're gonna deal with deepfake when the general public is equipped with this technology, because I think that will be a different level problem. And Facebook, because actually the future is kind of uncertain to us. So it's a little bit unrealistic to address that kind of level of problem with our knowledge of deepfake right now, because we're still at the quite beginning level. And as to address your first part of the question, I think to any social media or technology company, it's the quality of its contents is important. So even though there has to be a relation between, if the users have lose confidence in the contents of such as Facebook company, they would incline to seek other social media platform to have more trustworthy and more reliable contents. And if Facebook remains to be a unreliable and platform full of like misinformation and deepfake videos, then its user gonna have to abandon this platform.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone else? Okay, I have one more, and it has to do with, I guess, the reality that Facebook has established an independent board of advisors to help them sort through these challenges. So it's a large investment, I think, over 7 years, and a huge commitment for them to establish its own governance around, an escalation process as to what gets deleted, what doesn't get deleted. Can anyone talk to that a little bit? That was just established, I believe, in January. No knowledge of that?
I don't know if we looked at that came out in January now.
Okay, good. All right, so
Teresa, are you talking about January 2018 or January 2020, like of this year?
Of this year, yep. Just this year.
Because I do know that in 2018, they did do a whole series of, they had the vice president of policy do a whole series of articles addressing difficult questions, which we did cite as far as part of Facebook's values as part of the defense for our policy.
Yeah, they just released the bylaws for all that for this year, early this year. So they're forming this large governance structure independent of all this short to us. So I just think it's important to kind of know the latest if on this topic. So I check that out. Okay, so then with that, there are any other questions from the judges at all?
Yeah, I guess just one last one. Tying back to the sustainability goal that you were focused in on, could you talk a little bit about how you think solution supports that goal?
Yes, we were talking a lot about public access to information, and part of it, like the brand, we have a more expanded idea of sustainability, like sustaining society partially. We want to sustain people's trust in people's communities, and it's hard to, especially in countries that are democracies, it's really hard to expect the general public to make informed, free decisions, which are vital to supporting a democracy, when such a major platform is filled with misinformation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jill.
Okay, so then if there are no other questions from the judges, then we will conclude this section and move into the dialogue around providing some feedback, coaching, support, advice from this side of the table to the team. And so we'll go ahead and start with this. I guess we'll start with Chris here.
Don't start with me, please.
Okay, all right.
I need a little guy.
Who would like to start?
I can go. I can go.
Please.
So first of all, you guys did a great job, and you're going to get really good scores from me in a lot of things. So don't take anything that I'm about to say as criticism. It's just advice from someone who's been around the block. So part of my comments will stem from being a professional speaker. I've delivered about 350 keynotes. So here are a few things. In terms of the judging points, I thought you did a very good job with the ethical considerations. Ada especially appreciated how you explained the technical differences of deepfake. That was well done. You didn't, as a group, go into the financial risks very much. Fear is a great motivator. I wish you would have scared me more, would be one thing. In terms of your presentations, anyone can read from a script. If you want to impress people with your speaking abilities, don't read from a script, talk into the camera, or better yet, if you're face-to-face, prepare from your, don't prepare notes and read them verbatim. And actually, when you were responding to our questions and we could get a better sense of your real personalities, I actually thought you were much better than reading from a script. Also, advance your own slides. It's very clumsy to ask someone else to advance your slides. So you might, you might have to figure out a way in this kind of medium to pass things back and forth. Whenever you're explaining data, like you had a slide that had 3 tables on it that was side by side, you spent maybe 10 seconds on that slide, and I never had a chance to absorb what the data meant. So in particular, when you're presenting data, give people time to absorb the data on the page. Be careful about bulleted slides. You had a few slides that had 3 or 4 long bullets with a lot of text on them. You'd be much better off with one image and describing the image than giving people bullets. So there was one point where one of you, Zung Chang, am I saying you're Zung Chang? Am I saying that right?
Yes, yes.
You did show a graphic with like an either or. So your mind was able to say, well, that's a good idea or that's a bad idea. So that's the kind of graphic that's useful when someone is looking at your deck. If you were presenting an idea to a board, like the idea of deep trace, if you even bring up you said our suggestion would be, a board doesn't want a suggestion, they want a recommendation, and that recommendation has to have teeth to it. So this is how much it would cost, this is what the benefits would be, right? So I think that probably covers it. So again, I think you guys did a great job. I just encourage you to be more natural when you're presenting something and not so scripted. And that part of that's probably just this format, but overall, you did a great job.
Great job. Okay, see, Megan, any thoughts, feedback?
Yeah, gosh, I was taking notes myself there, Mark, so thank you for all of those pointers. That was great.
No problem.
So one thing that your team did that I've seen from some of the other teams that I appreciated is how you, it's during your introduction, is roles that you had in the team and how you explain that. I think what I've seen from some of the teams is it's just been kind of, here's who we are, and then just kind of jumping in. But the way in which you had kind of taken on roles where actually you said you were the attorney and you guys went through that, it helped me because then I could understand why you were the one presenting that information. And I also thought it was helpful then during the questioning phase, like when Christopher had his question that was really a legal question, he could direct it at the attorney. And that is much more, sorry, actually you were on the hot seat there, right? That was, luck of the draw. I think that that's a very realistic way to have portrayed it, because when you're making presentations, in business, you are there for, in a particular function or a particular role, and you are going to be known as the subject matter expert on whatever your particular organization is. So I thought that was a really interesting thing that I appreciate that you had done it that way. What else would I say? Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, one slide that stood out to me that I was a bit confused on was, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th slide, title financial on it, because it had the header financial, but the sub bullets to me didn't really seem like they were financial points. I didn't write it down, but I remember thinking they were kind of other general good points you were making, but it didn't seem to me connected to the header of the slide and then the sub bullets. But yeah, overall, I mean, really good job. I know this is a challenging, way to do these presentations. With a company, I always say I hate to do video conferences. I'd much rather do teleconferences. So I know this is not easy. Really well done. So thank you.
Okay. And from my perspective, again, I think that I concur again with all of the feedback thus far. All I would add is that I felt that for some reason a little bit formal in terms of how the team interacted with each other, more so than I've seen other presentations. So I don't know if there's a good or bad about that. I just noted that this team was more formal in terms of how you addressed each other, and so don't know if that's, again, good or bad, but just a note there. I also started to get excited about when you opened up with a very powerful review of the current policy at Fakebook, the current policy, and then you started sort of proposing some enhancements to that policy. And then I got my appetite was whet for some real meat around recommendations around the policy enhancement. We got some of it, but didn't get it as clearly as I would have liked to have coming out of the meeting. What specifically should I do as a board director to help make sure that we are, first of all, our policies are up to date and realistic, and then what we can do to recommend those changes based on the information that I learned from you. So it just felt a little like I wish I had more around what specifically should we do around policies. It was there, but I don't think I could bring it home for some reason at the end of the day with what I heard. And then I would just generally say that the human factor of, we're all emotional in many ways, but, imagine if that was you and someone took your words and changed them to say something else, and you're plastered all over the network. And so somehow, some way to make it human, so that it's painful and that you wouldn't want anyone to be in that situation. I do remember when Nancy Pelosi had responded to that video, and quite honestly, couldn't do anything about it. So I don't know if that's a valuable part of motivation, but some way to get me angry and make a change in our company that we support, so we do the right thing going forward, is just maybe a thought. But from there, I think very, very difficult, challenging, ethical and business issue that we're living in live as we speak today. So thank you so much for taking this on and giving it a go, and well done. So if there are any other comments from anyone else before we conclude?
Yes, I'll take my turn now if you don't mind.
Yes.
I agree with some of the things that the other three judges mentioned. Although I think a suggestion is a recommendation. I would have liked to have heard a little bit more about that deep, whatever it was called, that Mark was referring to.
Deep trace.
Say it again?
Deep trace.
Deep trace, yes. I would love to have learned a little bit more about that. I like the presentation. I don't mind a little formality because I do all my stuff in court. I thought y'all did a great job. I'm glad to be here with you.
Great. Wonderful. Anyone else? Any other feedback?
No, I would just say it's really fun to participate in something like this, because you see genius in younger people, and it gives you confidence that the world's not going to hell. So we're happy to be able to hand over the reins to the next generation of young leaders who are coming through school, and just keep fighting and working hard. Anything can happen.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for this tremendous amount of hard work that goes into these opportunities of presentation. So again, thank you very, very much. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.